Hi, welcome. In this video, I'd like to take a couple minutes to discuss why it is that I do not use remote collars as a primary tool. And this comes down to the issue of being intentional about relational change and the issue of communication and how that change happens in and through the person, how the change is promoted. And when you use a remote collar, there is a separation, even though remote collars can and do create relational change between dogs and owners. Oftentimes you can get this issue of it not packaging up properly, and so you can get this issue of device awareness. I talk about this, where the script is just not taking hold at such a level which really solidifies the foundation. The dog is still holding a level of power over that owner. This can even happen. I talk about pinch collars. This issue of a device and creating a position, and so your walk will look fantastic and feel good and everything, but the dog's still holding power. Okay, it's about the issue of understanding, what devices to use and how to connect in such a way so that this level of communication is going to happen that's really going to take hold and package up properly. So that's why you want to strip everything away and get right down to just a normal type of a leash and just a flat, straight collar. And I'll use, I will use a choke chain or a pressure collar, but not, to manifest authority like a crank and yank with a correction. I'll use it to control. Only so I can switch over to a flat collar. So it's all about technique and control. But again, this issue of communication is when you use a remote collar at a very high level, you're not really communicating with the dog at a high level in a way that you're going to be able to make sure it's really change is really being promoted properly. And so this is getting into the depth of how a dog's mind reacts and responds, and being in tune to that in the subtle nature of this communication. So if you look at the issue of the type of influence that's happening, you'll see it more in a way of a nudging that's happening with this level of communication through the leash. Just as the mind of the dog begins to separate, as the elevation takes hold. So you're not waiting for it to go over the top, okay, and then doing a correction. Okay, you're actually in tune to this issue of devaluation, this issue of being objectified, and so the script is very intentional. But this level of communication needs to vary and change, and this is getting to the point of why I don't use remote collars, because when you're interacting and you're working off of just response and using the collar to project influence that way to initiate a response, you want to really get be very intentional about the script in a way that's really going to take hold. You really want to get into a deeper level of communication with the dog, and therefore the devices are just a means to an end. They're not a crutch. You go off leash with the dog, it's going to be solid. And so it's really about getting in tune to what is really going on, what really promotes change. And the other issue too is that sometimes what will happen is with a remote collar, because there's this separation level with communication, sometimes the person doesn't change, and there's to the level needed. It's not like the doms aren't dropping relationally, the way that they need to. And so it's not lining up, it's not making sense to the dog. They could be connecting the device to the owner, but then this is where you get into these stress levels. The dog will start to stress because it's not making sense. Whereas you strip everything away and go to just a leash, and just everything lines up. It's just like Dom was dropping. So even before the leash starts to move, to start to define and define the script, and influence comes online, relational influence comes online, all the dominoes drop properly. So it all goes right from the owner thinking to the physical, through the communication line, to the leash, to the dog, and then that's why I won't even use certain devices with corrective collars that way, because then it'll be too much. Yes, influence is needed, okay, but it's about the person becoming different. The person is changing how they think. But again, even with the touching certain ways with the dog, bring the dog in certain positions, you see what it does is it forces the owner's mind over. That's very important. You can't, touch a dog and move certain ways and it not force your mind to go to where it needs to go. So there's a lot going on here, just so people understand. It's very, very intentional. Everything has meaning in the system. And so if you want to know why it is I don't pivot off certain devices that way, it's about, really stripping everything down so that you're going to make sure everything packages up properly. Because again, you want all the dominoes to drop properly. Because again, you don't want stress on the dog, you don't want stress on the owner, you don't want these questions coming up as to why is this not working, or why is this dog stressed out, or why is dog seems better with the remote collar on, but they take the remote collar off and I get these problems still. So all these things matter. It's about making sure this packages up properly. You're in tune to a different level here with this system. It's relational. And so just something to think about. If you want answers, if you need help with your dog, contact me anytime. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. I have lots of free videos on my website and questions about remote collars. Again, I'll be more than happy to answer them. Thanks for watching.